Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our weekly Torah learning class of Inspiring and Learning Together. Tonight, we are dedicating this class in memory of a dear classmate and friend, Hindalea Bas Menachem Mendel. It's a year of passing on Vav Elul, this coming Wednesday. May her holy neshama have the highest aliyah. Her name is Hindi Krinsky. Hindi was a loving mother of 5. 3 of her children were a set of triplets. And she was an amazing scholar and an amazing friend and inspired many, many people in her field. She was a doctor. She empowered those around her, even those she met for a very brief encounter. May her neshama have the highest aliyah, and the way of honoring someone when they pass on is by doing a good deed, a mitzvah in her merit. So if everyone can please do something in her memory, Hindalea Bas Menachem Mendel, may her family be comforted very, very soon with the coming of Mashiach. So I'm going to start off with giving, because we always like to start off with giving, because how we give, that's how Hashem will give to us. Please give generously, so Hashem can and will give you generously. So I'm going to put a couple of coins in the tzedakah box. This class is also dedicated in merit of the complete refuah shalema for Chana Leah Sarabat Pesha Gittel, Rafael Chaim Meir Ben Simachasha, Devorah Leah Bas Yafa Liba, Chaim Nessa Levi Ben Shoshana, Razel Bas Hadas, and for Yosef Yitzchak Ben Bela, and everyone who needs, may they have a full recovery immediately. I also do this class weekly in honor of my dear grandmother, Rivka Dina Bas Yosef Yehuda. I hope you're proud. We're going to start off tonight by sharing a video in the beginning. This video is a very special one because our dear guest speaker that is on tonight, it's a family member of her father and her uncle, and it's going to tie in the class, and she's going to explain a little bit how she got inspired to get into the field of Jewish education, and from her family history, and it's a beautiful video. So give me a moment while I pull it up. And while we're pulling it up, I just want to share we're doing the 10 mitzvahim, and this is the 9th mitzvah campaign, which is mitzvah chinuch, which means education, Jewish education.
הוריי שהתחתנו, הרבי הקודם שלח אותם בפקודה בעיר גורקי, רוסיה. במשך תקופת השלטון היהדות ירדה, בתי כנסיות נסגרו, לא נשאר אף אחד.
Mein Vater hat mich so geschätzt. Ich wäre gar ein Germanschik und ich war doch 21 Jahre alt. Aber ich habe die ganze Stadt zur Jüdischkeit und zur Chassiduskeit.
Drüber der Nossi, an Nessi hat geöffnet den Weg, ist weggegangen nach Klau Israel in dem Derech. Amide jem bei jem steht man in der Tnur von Messias Nefesh.
Die heintige Sprache, und es geht als Licht.
היינו בפחד מידי. כל יום שעובר, אנחנו denken נמידוש.
Beschaß mir will bleiben Matera Jid, in die Tag in ander Weg, steiden der ganze 24 Schoffen des Les, beim durchgenommen mit Messias Nefesh. Was mir darf das haben, nicht nur auf der Gimel, was ich höre, weil Jahwe, nur auf Kohl, Saad und nur.
שהייתי ילד קטן, הייתי בן 10 בדיוק, אבא נכנס בליווי שני אנשים, לבושים אזרחיים. שם אותו בכיסא, אמרו לו, ואריסטובנה, והם חיפשו. אותי דבוניה הסתובבה ליד אבא. גלים שנהיה מקופל עד הסוף, וזרק לקראתה. היא קלטה מיד, והתכופפה, להרים את זה. גם הם עכשיו לב, הם עפו. גם הרים הראשונה, מה עושים איתו? ייקחו ממנה. בפה, בלע את זה. אחרי זה אלו, צריכים לגרשם, תשפיט יצורה. ואם מוצאים את הגיפידיום בכיס שלו, מיד אומרים, יש לך קשר, כתבתי בשביל לשלוח. זה קשר נשמתי, לא קשר גש.
Nicht gucken die Kavderu, was sie sein in a meine du Matze, was il mole in a gdu, la Hanani, Michol, Vazaria. Ich sag die Gemora, wer weiß, sie wollten beigestanden dem Nisoi. Und sie seien beigestanden dem Nisoi und stehen ihm bei und gehen nun in die Unionen von Niedigkeit.
בספור קיבל 10 שנים. הוא נוסע למחנת עבודה במדברות קזחסטן. האשמה העיקרית השתייכות לתנועת שני יבסו. אחרי שנים רבות, אבא השתחרר הביתה. התחילו לארגן, לראות מה אפשר עכשיו לעשות, איך לארגן את חיי קהילה מחדש. מחתרת עבור. אבא תמיד היה אומר, קינדרלך, יש לנו שליחות פה, ועד שלא נגמור את השליחות פה, לא נצא מכאן. בארבע עיניים, בפברנגן, בנגן.
Sagen alle zusammen Lechaim und wünschen nach Chaim und Brocho und Scholem zu der alle Jiden, was Lefi Scho derweil gefinnen sie sich noch nach Chere Hamosach, wie das wird angerufen. Und wünschen sie, als sie sollen sich halten stark bei Jüdischkeit, wo das Chayehem, Verich Jomehem, das Gufe wird leichter machen, die Gseres, in die Goy, was noch geblieben zu sehr Gejulo, bekore Mamos.
Nun gewähren in das Kind an Entlaufener. Wir waren auch 20 Jahre. Ein Tag hat man mit dir gewähnt, als gewähnt ein Tourist von Amerika, ein Schleich von Rebbe, und gebracht dem Rebels ein Picture. Da habe ich eine Mikve, und die Picture gelegt mit und das. Du jetzt wer zu reden, für mich gegangen, auch herum Tisch, und geguckt auf das Picture, und nur Tränen sind gegossen, gucken dich, und jeder eine gefühlt, der Rebbe guckt auf ihn, und mir hat jemand ein Chassidus mit der Rebbe. Und das war das erste Mal, was wir gesehen dem Rebbe. Wir sind gewesen sicher, ohne Schumsofik, es kommt eine Zeit, wir uns sein Rebbe.
Die, was haben sicher gewesen und Matzliach gewesen, a der Rebeste rechnet, als sie haben schon dort verändert, sehr Avedes Abiruyim, aufzuhalten Idigkeit und durch dem aufhalten Iden. Sie können schon kommen in der Nord, wo dort leichter, und sie nicht dort den Nisjenes, auf Leben, a jüdischen Leben, in alle Protein.
באותה תקופה התחילו כבר לצאת אנשים בודדים מירושיה. זקנים, בני 80, בודדים, עוד אפילו זוגות, יחיד סגול. ז'מה וינרסקי ידידנו, הוא ואשתו זקנים שניהם, קיבל אישור יציאה, ופה עלה בדעתו של אבא. שמא אם הוא מוכן לקחת פתק מיועד לרבי באופן אישי. הוא היה לו מעיל, לקח את הפתק, כמו בדו סיגריה, דק מאוד. הוא פרם את הבטנה, ובתוך הצמר גפן הוא הכניס את הפתק. הוא דק, גם עם השישום בידיים, לא ירגישו, רק אם יפתחו. כעבור מספר שבועות או חודש, יותר מחודש, מגיע מכתב בתוך מעטפה, בפתק כתוב ברוסית. התוכן היה שנגיש כולם ביחד. הלכתו מהידו סבידניה, דלשו. הייתה הבטחה מפורשת, דוסרידניה, להתראות, לפירוש מודק של מילים. צל של ספק לא היה, שאנחנו יוצאים. אנחנו הגענו לאגד בטס קיסלב 65. בחובל טייבס הרבי כבר היה אצל הרבי, ביחידש. הרבי שאל אותו, בחיוך, ויתר גיקומן הזה יח.
Auf dem kommenden Jahr hat der Rebbe geschickt von mir und meinem Bruder Tickets, kommen zum Rebbe auf Jonte. Und als sie kommen zu Kia Schäfer, und der Rebbe gestanden von Bime, und wie die was sein gewesen gesehen, wie der Seder gewesen, hat der Rebbe auf der Hanan, wie sein Taler Siebe war von über Kopf und über alle Pidienes und stark weinen. Und es ist einer von den Morgen, dass der Rebbe zu Chasibe geboren hat, mit dem Taler, und der Rebbe aufgestanden hat, und der Kerl getan sich zu Lebo Groner, und gesagt zu Lebo Groner, wo sind die Russische? Auf dem Bime gestanden, ja, mit der Futterfass oder was so, und Berkechein, hat der Lebo Groner gewesen zum Rebbe, und sie sind da. Und er hat gesagt, ich mein Wyszecki. Hat er genommen Chaya, und Wyszecki. Jetzt habe ich mit dem Bruder, rübergegangen nicht auf dem Bime, und mein Bruder Bench gestanden von linken Seite, und ich habe gestanden von der rechten Seite.
Er מסתובב לראות אם כולם עומדים. אז הבחינו ברוך השם. כיש.
In Russland sie geben sicher, es kommt eine Zeit, wir uns einmal haben. Und das ist durch gehalten in jüdischer Technik und Frömmkeit, wissen dich, als ich aus Stein baut in Kirchen, am Rebun.
אין ספק של ספק, שהרבי הביאו אותנו מההתחלה וגם היום. מי שקשור לרבי, רבי מביא אותו. אין ספק בזה.
Wow, that was so inspiring and so heartwarming and so special to see the power of a Rebbe to his people. So I want to just introduce to you now our guest speaker, which I'm so excited for you all, Miss Basya Deitsch from New Haven, Connecticut. And she has a school and her own school that she founded, and she's a big part of the community, and she guides a lot of people and mentors them. And she's also she also does a lot of other things in her time. She's a mother, she's a wife, and she is a guide. And if anybody ever needs a life coach, she does that as well, and she's awesome. So I'd like to introduce to you Basya Deitsch. She's also my cousin and friend. If you can please share with us the mitzvah campaign of Chinuch, and we're very excited to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Chaya, for your kind and generous words. And it's always amazing to see what you do for all of us. This particular Zoom reaches so many people, and you invest so much of your time and effort in it, and it's truly admirable and inspiring. So keep it up, really unbelievable. Thank you all so much for coming and being here. And to learn about Mivtza Chinuch, when Chaya called me actually to ask me if I would participate in this series of campaigns, when she said she would like to cover the Rebbe's campaigns, she said, which one would you like to do? And before I even had a chance to respond, she said to me, I think you should do education. I know you love education, and I know this is something that you're very passionate about. So truly, I didn't have to even think about it, but she indeed is correct. I'm very passionate about education and spend most of my adult years involved in education, and have always seen the fruits of my labor always, the return is unbelievable when you work with children and you teach. It's unbelievable to see that you can impact a child in the most important and beautiful way. And thankfully, I was able to teach mostly in high school for most of my education, the years that I was teaching. And now I am involved in working with younger children. I'd like to share a personal story to start how that happened. So my preference was always to teach high school students because I just felt that I could relate to them more. They were interested in learning. They've spent enough time fooling around in elementary school. And by the time they got to high school, they realized it was silly to waste their time. They came ready and prepared to learn. And I didn't want to, waste time with silliness. I wanted to teach. And not only that, it also gave me the opportunity to prepare things that are, high school level. I had to really invest a lot of work and preparation and learn a lot myself in order to be able to teach students at that level of intellect and understanding. They had deep questions, and I often had to go home and research things that I didn't have enough understanding in, and it forced me to learn more and more, and I loved it. Anyhow, probably about 10 years ago, it's not accurate, I didn't do the exact math, but about the high school that I was working in New Haven, Connecticut, was taking a year off to restructure itself. And I figured, it's probably not a bad thing for me to take a year and have a break. And that's what I decided I'll do. And a few weeks passed once that decision was made. And then all of a sudden, I got a call from the elementary school in New Haven asking if I could please come in and teach the 7th and 8th grade class. And my answer was pretty swift. I said, nope, I don't really want to teach 7th and 8th graders. They're going through all their stuff, their hormonal stuff, and whining and not interested in being there. And I don't have patience for that. I want to teach, I want to learn, I want them to learn. And I really didn't have patience for that age. So I, apologetically said, I don't think it's for me, and I think not. But the principal really didn't let up. He really called me again and again and said, there's really a need. And my guilt got the best of me, and I started feeling like maybe it's wrong that I'm saying no to him. I clearly should probably do it. It's probably the right thing to do. They need it in the school. They need it in the community. And I said to him, what, let me go to the Ayel and Queen, to Lubavitcher Rebbe, and tell him my concerns. I don't know that I'm the right person for this. I don't know that I have enough patience for this. And see what if I get an answer or a blessing, and I'll make a decision. I told him I'll call him back. So sure enough, I made a trip to Queens. And it happened to have been that by the time he nagged me enough, it was the week that we were celebrating, the Chabad community was celebrating the anniversary of the release from prison of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was imprisoned in Russia, in Soviet Russia. For what reason? For educating Jewish children and disseminating Torah and mitzvahs to everybody there. As you have seen in the video that we just watched, that this was the highest order in Russia. People gave up their lives for Jewish continuity and Jewish education, and the Frierdiker Rebbe was at the forefront of that. And he's the one who actually sent my grandfather, that was spoken about in the video, to do that, to impact the community and spread Judaism there and teach and so on. And therefore, he was arrested. It was not something that was allowed at the time in Soviet Russia. And so when I walked into the Ohel on this day, celebrating the anniversary of the release from prison of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, on the screen, when you come into the Ohel, is a big screen where there are videos playing of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's speaking to his Chassidim, to all of us. And often they try to match up the video to the time of the year or the occasion that's happening within that month. And clearly, because we were celebrating the anniversary of the Frierdiker Rebbe's release, the Rebbe was speaking to us Chassidim about this. And what was the whole video that the Rebbe was talking about as I entered? I sat down to watch. The Rebbe said that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe sacrificed his life to teach young children Torah. And he did everything possible to reach children under the most dangerous circumstances. And the Rebbe continued to say, the Russians didn't mind if adults learned Torah. They appreciated Torah. They knew that this was a very intellectual book, and they wanted people to be educated. But what they didn't allow was for children to learn Torah. because they understood the impact that we can have on a child and how influential they can be, and how we can mold them as they're young. And the Rebbe continues in the video to explain all this. And he said, therefore, we learn how important it is to invest in young children before they've already been hardened or molded, when we can really influence them. And as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, the Rebbe is speaking directly to me. I don't want to teach the younger children. I want to teach the older children. And the Rebbe continues to say it is the hardest job in the world, and the greatest rewards are given to educators who teach young children because of how hard it is and because of the tremendous importance and responsibility. And that's it. I knew that the Rebbe was talking to me and I had my answer. But in case that wasn't enough, as I was sitting there, a Rebbitzin from Israel, Rebbitzin Pekarsky, she's an emissary of the Lubavitch Rebbe in Tel Aviv, Israel. She was heading back to Tel Aviv, and on the way to the airport, she stopped to Queens to the Rebbe to just write a letter and receive a blessing before she left. And she had walked in and was standing over my shoulder watching the video with me. And then suddenly the camera zoomed in on one particular person. And I had no idea who it was, but she tapped me on my shoulder and she said, Basya, this is Rabbi Moshe Yitzchak Hecht of New Haven. He's the head shliach of New Haven. Al Vashalom, he passed many years ago, but he's the one who's the head shliach of New Haven. He founded the school that I was working in, and that I was asked to come teach in the elementary. And I just felt like that's it. I had nothing left to ask the Rebbe. The Rebbe couldn't have given me a clearer answer that this is the most important task, to go ahead and do it. And that I walked out of the video room and went into the room where we write letters to the Rebbe. And I sat down and said, thank you for clarity. Please give me a blessing that it should go smoothly. I should have the strength and the energy to do it. And I should be able to impact these young souls. And it's unbelievable, but ever since then, I've been guided in the most clear way. And today I'm actually running a school for preschool and for elementary school, something in my life I've never thought I'd be able to do, working with such young ones, but I couldn't enjoy it more. It is precious, it is sacred, and it is the biggest, I feel like I have the biggest merit every single day. And this love and gift to work with children in education clearly came from my own family and from my own parents. As you can see, they sacrificed so much. They couldn't wait to come to the free country, to America, so they can just live as free Jews, serving Hashem and teaching Torah and learning Torah in freedom. And this is exactly what the Rebbe wanted. The Rebbe wanted us, we're here in a free country, that every single Jewish child should be able to have that, the luxury and the treat of learning Torah and connecting to Hashem and his mitzvahs. It's not that learning Torah is new to our heritage. Teaching Torah to children is something that is the bedrock of Yiddishkeit. Always, we know that the whole Torah talks about, we learned something and the Torah was given to us and was passed on from one to the next, and that's what ensures Jewish continuity. As a matter of fact, Moshe Rabbeinu, our biggest teacher, we call him Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe our teacher. And you might wonder, why would we call Moshe Rabbeinu a teacher? I mean, when we think about Moshe Rabbeinu, he redeemed us from Egypt. Why don't we call him the Redeemer? Perhaps we should call him a leader. He was the best leader that we possibly know in our history. Or he spoke to Hashem, to God, face to face. And all we can do is call him Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher. But no, it is the highest compliment in Judaism to teach. That is where the impact is. That is where the continuity happens. And that's how we affect the world in the greatest possible way. The Rebbe took this to a much greater level in the 70s when he introduced these campaigns and he introduced the campaign of education. He wanted to shake up the whole world. He wanted to make sure that education is at the forefront, and not only for Jewish children, for society as a whole. As a matter of fact, when he started the campaign of education, he ended up saying, let's call it the year of education. He wanted that the entire world should focus on education, and he had his emissaries go out all over and speak to governments and school heads of schools, so that even in public schools, children should take a moment every single day and think about who they are, their purpose in this world. He wanted that we should teach all the nations the Noahide laws, so that education should be something that every single human should should learn, and it should be in the forefront. The Rebbe saw the need to teach the world the morals and the values and the ethics of Hashem. And specifically, he honed in on the children and on the Jewish children. And he did it in the most beautiful way. I mean, the Rebbe was so busy. The Rebbe met with leaders, with all different kinds of people. He had letters from the whole world asking for advice and blessings. But the Rebbe took the time, countless hours, to talk about Jewish education, educating children. And not only that, he literally made campaigns and programs for the children so that we can actually know how to invest in the children. And some of the things that he founded, number one of the biggest things is Tzivos Hashem. It's an organization that's called the Army of Hashem. He said all children need to know that they are soldiers of God. There's a war. We're out here to dispel darkness. There's darkness, and we have the ammunition, the light, to dispel the darkness. And he wanted every child to know that they have the power to do this. And he created a whole system, and it's the most powerful children's program that I know of that exists worldwide today. Children receive missions that are suitable to them, that they can accomplish. And when they do the missions, they go up in rank. It is unbelievable to see. For every single age, the missions suit them. The missions apply to mitzvos that they can do. It applies to helping other Jews. It applies to refining themselves, refining the world. And by doing that, they get points and prizes. And now these children know that they have a real purpose. The Rebbe founded an organization called Merkaz L'Inyanei Chinuch, which is an organization to oversee all the different institutions that educate children. In addition to that, he had after-school programs for children in public schools, the release time programs, and many schools and programs opened up that year to reach as many children as possible, teaching these Torah values to children. The Rebbe also wanted the children to know Torah by heart wherever they went, and also that they should be able to teach other children. He wanted us to make our children leaders, not just to be students, but that they should teach others. And he wanted to empower the children. And he started the idea of the 12 psukim. Chaya, I hope that everything I'm saying you're going to post, how people can sign up to Tzivos Hashem. The 12 psukim that we're talking about, literally you can, all the parents and communities that subscribe to this, listen to the Rebbe, went home and taught their children all these things and taught their children the 12 psukim. You can tell now you can walk into these communities, you can ask a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, they can tell you these 12 passages by heart. It is taught to them through songs and motions. It's unbelievable. I walk into classrooms, I see children playing with blocks, and they're singing passages of Torah by heart. Such young children, but this was the Rebbe's vision. He knew children have such a power and such a tremendous ability. The Rebbe
Basya, could I just interrupt you for one moment? The 12 psukim, which is fascinating. I'm an educator myself, and I teach toddlers, and it's amazing to see how much they can grasp and learn. But it's something that we do in our group is we learn the 12 psukim. And recently, I found out that the 12 psukim is a form of protection for adults and children. So when we say it, it's protection. The words are protecting our homes, our families, our children. So it's something that we should really do a full class on in the future.
I love that. Absolutely. And all these things, the Rebbe saw that the children have such a tremendous power that, as a matter of fact, when he introduced all these campaigns, the world was going through different struggles. There was tremendous darkness in the world. And the Rebbe would say, take the children, gather them into groups and say these psukim because they have a power to protect the world in difficult times. And even now, whenever somebody's trying to, dealing with illness and we want to bring prayer forth to Hashem with tremendous power, we gather the children because they have so much power. And we always say the 12 psukim. The Rebbe did something that is unheard of. I can't think of another leader as great as the Rebbe, who gathered children, called on official meetings and gatherings for children so that he can address them personally. So when children came home from camps, he had the camps bring the children straight to his shul to 770, and he addressed them personally. And he did this with the release time children, the children that were learning in public school programs, the Jewish after school programs. He wanted to meet them and speak with them and encourage them and uplift them personally, because he believed so much in the youth. The Rebbe started the Lag BaOmer parade. He wanted it to be the children marching in the streets, showing the world, teaching the world about Jewish pride. And it's unheard of. I mean, usually we educate adults, we tell adults to go out and teach and to lead. The Rebbe saw something unique. He did something different when he started the Mivtza Chinuch. It wasn't just about continuity, teaching Torah to adults, teach it to the next adult so that eventually it'll stay alive. The Rebbe saw the power of a child. The Rebbe saw in the here and now what a child was capable of. And if every single child was educated in this way, what he can literally impact in the world now, which obviously has a ripple effect for generations and generations to come. And the Rebbe felt that the younger we started with children, the better it would be, because then they have it in their DNA. As a matter of fact, I mean, there's a famous story with the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe is the first Chabad Rebbe. He wrote the Tanya, he wrote a code of Jewish law. And one day he was studying Torah, and in the apartment nearby, his son, Reb Dober, was studying. And while the Reb Dober was studying, his baby was sleeping in a cradle, and the baby fell out and began to cry. And the Alter Rebbe heard the cries of the child, and he realized that his father, the baby's father, Reb Dober, didn't hear. So he came in and he picked up the child and he rocked the child back to sleep in the cradle, and he left. The next morning, he called his son, Reb Dober, in, and he reprimanded him. And he said that nothing should get in the way of the cries of a child. The most important thing is a child and the cries of a child, even your Torah studies. And it was a very, very impactful lesson for generations for us. And we always think about that, the cries of a child. A child is the most precious and valuable thing, and we need to invest in them every single day. As a matter of fact, a father once came with his son to the Rebbe. He was 12 years old, and he asked the Rebbe advice how to educate him and raise him. And the Rebbe said to him, "I'm sorry, you're 12 years too late. A child is like a tree. And when you plant the seed, if there's a little scratch in the seed, then the tree will grow up to be a crooked tree or not a strong tree." So really, it's when we plant, we have to be very careful that the seed is planted properly and dealt with carefully, so the tree can have strong roots and create a strong, tall, powerful tree. And, this is always a discussion, how much we should impose on our children. Is it fear? Will they have, freedom to choose? Two professors were having this discussion, and one professor said this one, I'm totally opposed. I think that children should not be taught this when they're young, when they're impressionable, and as adults, they can explore different things and see if it suits them, if they want it, and choose it. And the professor chose not to say anything. After a few minutes, he said, "I'd like to take you for a walk in my garden." And he took him outside, and his friend looked around at the garden. He sees weeds everywhere, a garden that was completely out of control, didn't look beautiful at all. And he said, "This is a garden? What's going on here? I see weeds everywhere. Why don't you take care of it?" So his friend professor said, "I didn't want to impose on my garden. I didn't want to stifle its desire of freedom. I let it just do its thing." And obviously the professor understood that, yes, we do need to remove the weeds and care for the garden and treat it in a way so that it's a beautiful garden. So too it is the same with our children. I read a beautiful story, a letter actually, in Mr. Goldhirsch invested in a real estate property with his law partner in Melbourne, Australia, in a popular part of downtown Melbourne. And shortly after they bought the property, a large Chinese investment company approached them with an offer for this property that they couldn't refuse. And he made a huge profit on this property. And he and his wife were talking about that they would like to give charity, a lot of charity from this profit. And they were trying to figure out what would be the best thing to invest in, what should they give it towards. And they came up with an idea that they would like to build a big children's hospital in Crown Heights that would be based on Torah and mitzvos, and it would be under the Rebbe's guidance. Thought this would be a very, very special contribution. And he sent a large sum of money to Crown Heights. Shortly after that, he receives a letter from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the letter begins by thanking him profusely for his generous donation. And he also, the Rebbe continues discussing discussing medicine versus Torah and some other things. And then the Rebbe goes to discuss the different current approaches in medicine. And he says there's a therapeutic approach and there's the preventive approach. And the Rebbe says the therapeutic approach deals with treating illness, of course, which is very, very important. And the preventive approach eliminates illness. We need a therapeutic approach because obviously when somebody's ill, we need to heal them. But the Rebbe says the preventive approach is a much more desirable method. Of course, we want to eliminate illness. And to be effective, we must begin when the children are very young. And the Rebbe said, for example, with a child, we need to vaccinate the children when they're young. We need to brush their teeth. We need to teach them to brush their teeth. We need to teach them to eat healthy. And this is preventive medicine. And the Rebbe goes on to write in his letter, for a Jewish child, it is important that they eat and drink kosher because it affects their mental and physical development. This is what the Rebbe is writing in this letter to this Mr. Goldhirsch about opening a hospital. And listen to the words he says, instead of your donation, and I quote, be towards a hospital, the Torah is the most effective preventive medicine. And he said that the best way of implementing your intention and achieve incomparably greater results is to apply it in the area of Torah education for children. How amazing is that? And the Rebbe says, for this will ensure healthy children physically, mentally, and spiritually. So there would be no need for a hospital. And it's amazing because today, when I think about it, and working with children, there's so much anxiety, there's so much confusion in the world. We see children, I've never seen so many children on medication like there is today. And not only children, adults, where they're growing up in a time of chaos and confusion. And it's unheard of. And there's no surprises. There's so much chaos in the world. Children don't know anymore who they are. They don't know anymore where they're going, what they're doing, how to navigate this world. You know, being an educator, being in a school, working with children, teachers often approach me to ask me about how to deal with children who are struggling, the class, if they're having discipline problems. And I repeat a story that I tell every single year, the open meeting of school. And I tell the teachers this, and I feel this is so important for us all. Our classrooms are like an airplane. When we're on an airplane, your students are the passengers and the teacher is the pilot. Imagine sitting on a plane and there's turbulence and the pilot asks you, what should we do? There's turbulence. I don't know. Should we go up? Should we go down? Should I pick up speed? Should I slow down? Should we put on seatbelts? Should we not put on seatbelts? It would terrify us. I would lose my mind, not feeling that I'm an adult. I don't want to hear that from the pilot. And I always say to the teachers, what you need to do is what we know a proper pilot does. The pilot announces on the microphone, turbulence, we're about to enter turbulence, take your seats, put on your seatbelts, and we're gonna be fine. And that's the bottom line. Children need to know that there's a leader, there's a direction, I got this, you know what to do, and that's how we navigate turbulence, with direction and clarity. And that's something that the Rebbe saw so clearly that our children need, and they need it young. Our children are left to make so many decisions that we never had to even think about. The world is open to them. So much chaos, so many things that they know about that we never were exposed to. And now they have to see this and think, what's normal, what's not normal, what's good and what's bad. They have no idea. And so, we keep talking about this Jewish education that we need to give the children, and we need to make sure that every single child is exposed to this. And this is something that's so important. What is the meaning of education? What are we talking about? So the Alter Rebbe, which we spoke about previously, who wrote the Tanya and the Code of Jewish Law, he called in a Melamed one day. A Melamed is a teacher for children. And he said to him, we each have a mitzvah. We have a mitzvah. I have a mitzvah to teach my children, and you have a mitzvah to support your family. So I want to ask you I want to swap. You teach my child, and I'm going to pay you money to support my family. And he said, and this is how you should do it. I want you to start by teaching the holy letters, the Aleph base. And we're going to start with Aleph. And you're going to teach my child that an Aleph has, if you know what a Hebrew letter looks like, an Aleph has a dot on top and a dot on bottom and a line in between. And he goes on to say, or a yud on top, a yud on bottom, and a letter vav in between. The Hebrew alphabets are made up of letters. And so the Aleph is made up of a yud on top, a yud on bottom, and a vav in between. And he went on to explain and teach the child that the yud above is the God above in the world. And he's so great and so infinite that we can only understand one tiny dot of him above. We can only grasp so little. We are our infinite beings can only grasp a tiny bit of the great God that we have above in heaven. And the dot on the bottom, the yud on the bottom, the letter on the bottom represents the Jewish soul on this earth, or any mankind. We all have a soul on this earth. And we are so minuscule and small. We're like a dot in comparison to the greatness of God. And how can we connect to him is through this vav, which represents the idea of accepting the yoke of heaven. In other words, the Torah and the mitzvos. And this is how we connect to Hashem, to this great God. And that is education. What does that actually mean to us? It means that we are teaching children that there is a God who loves us, a God who created us, a God who created the world. He's taking care of everything. He created us. He's even telling us what our purpose is. We are here to refine the world. We're here to refine ourselves. We are here to do this. And he tells us how. He gives us a code of law, a book, clearly the Torah, telling us specifically and clearly, guiding us every step of the way what we need to do, so that we don't have to worry and we don't have to think that it's our job to figure it all out in this great big world. And that's chinuch. That is Jewish education, knowing your value. And Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, said that Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, the flame of God is the soul of man, that each and every one of us is literally a part of Hashem. Our soul is a part of God. We are created in the image of God, and we have such a tremendous power. Our souls are literally a part of heaven and have potential to accomplish such great things. And it's for that reason that the Rebbe knew that he needed to invest so much in each and every single soul, because the power that we have to impact the world, to refine ourselves and refine the world, is unbelievable. I have a teacher who came to me, having a school in the summer. We spend the whole summer interviewing teachers because, all the open spots that we have to fill, the challenges of education today. And so one of my teachers came, she was from Israel. Sometimes I have teachers who come to work to Yale. They come on different missions. We have teachers who come to Sikorsky Airport to work on aircrafts together, Israel and America. It's quite interesting to hear their stories. So I asked the teacher who came for an interview for a position why she came. And she said to me that she's raising teenagers in Israel, and she realized that it was just scary. She moved, when she started her life and started a family, she moved into a community that cared very much about raising children properly and educating children. She said to me, I'm not observant, I'm not connected in any way, to any kind of religion. And I wasn't interested. I was raising my family, with like-minded people. And now my children are teenagers, and I'm looking at their friends, and I'm looking at the community, I'm looking at the schools, and it's literally scary to see what's going on. She says, there are no morals, there are no values, there's no respect for adults anymore. And it scared me. I told my husband, we need to pick up and move away. Otherwise, we have no way of knowing what's going to happen to our children. And she didn't feel like, she had no idea where she can go there. She doesn't even know. She says, we're going to leave. We're going to go to America. She said, I don't have a job. I don't have a house. I'm staying by a friend. We just knew that we must invest in the children. And I mean, it is never too late. It's harder. She said, my kids are teenagers, and we literally pluck them away from their friends and everything they know. But we knew that there's no way that we're going to know what their future would be if we don't stop now and reevaluate the education that they're receiving, because what the freedom and the no structure and the no God and the no direction really is resulting in a chaotic society. And it's a very scary thing, she said to me. And she's we're a school that's based on the foundation of Torah mitzvahs, and she understands it. And she said, I see now the value in that. I didn't before, but now I actually see it. I see your children. I see your children when they're talking to each other, talking not about anything but just beautiful things. They don't have other outside influences, because you're careful to really, really teach them and remind them constantly what's important and what they should spend their time on, and you're emphasizing things that will only help them refine themselves and hopefully the world around them. That's what matters, and that's what you're investing your time in, and I really need to come and learn and see how I can be a part of this. Reminds me of a story. A couple had a baby boy, and they were discussing what name to give the child. So the mother said, I want to name the child after my father, Avraham. The father said, no, I want to name the child after my father, Avraham. And so he said, let's just name the child Avram. It'll be after both of our fathers. So the mother said, no, my father was a tzaddik, a righteous man. Your father was not a very nice man. I don't want our child named after him. And they just couldn't agree. So finally she said, you know what, let's go to the rabbi and let's do what the rabbi tells us. Whatever he says, that's what we're going to do. And sure enough, she went to the rabbi and she tells him her dilemma. We have a baby. We would like to name him. I want to name him Avram after my father. My father was a righteous man. My husband wants to name Avram after his father, but his father wasn't a righteous man. And we can't agree. So the rabbi said, so just call him Avram after both of your fathers. She says, no, I don't want to. I only want it to be after my father. The rabbi says, well, this is a real tough one. You know what? I need a day to think about this. And so sure enough, the lady comes back the next day to the rabbi. She says, okay, what should I name my child? The rabbi says, Abraham. She says, but after who? My righteous father or my husband's evil father? And the rabbi said, that you'll know when he grows older. Bottom line is that if we want to impact our children, that they should be righteous when they grow older, we need to put in the effort and when they're younger. And that is what the Miftzah Chinuch, the Miftzah of education, the campaign of education was about. The Rebbe saw such a need for us to go out there, like a war almost, to fight the darkness, the outside influences, the chaos for our children, and to make it clear to them that there is a God, there is a direction, there is a purpose. They have tremendous value. They have tremendous power and ability to affect the world. And they have a Torah that tells them how. This is what education is about. Now we might ask ourselves, how do we do this? How do we go about this? As a matter of fact, some of us might be thinking like, oh my gosh, is this too late? Like I didn't do it till now. What am I supposed to do? Well, it's like asking yourself, how do you do business? How do you communicate? How do you live? That's how we do education. As a matter of fact, it's a commandment in Deuteronomy. There's a pasuk that says, "V'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha v'veisecha v'lechtecha v'derech u'v'shaftecha v'kumecha," and in English, and you shall teach the Torah to your children, and you should speak about it when you are home and when you travel, before you lie down to sleep and when you wake up. In other words, this is a full-time job. Yes, the Rebbe wanted us to make sure that every single Jewish child is getting a proper Jewish education, and that every single child is in a Jewish school, and because that's important, and that they're in an environment where all day they're surrounded by children who are being taught morals and values and ethics, and that they have meaning and purpose. But at the same time, that's not enough. We need to breathe it and live it full time. And we have to remember that that's the only way to educate. And as a matter of fact, it can only happen by example. It doesn't happen from speeches. It doesn't happen from schooling our children. It happens from living that way. We need to literally sacrifice for it. Like we saw the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, and in Soviet Union, despite all the challenges, they knew they needed to sacrifice everything for education. As a matter of fact, Chaya actually asked me, Chaya, if the name on the school in Crown Heights is a big boy school, it's called Ahalei Torah. And it's thousands of children go through the school. And on the building, it says the names of my husband's grandparents, David and Sarah Deitsch. And she asked, am I related to them? I said, absolutely, I'm related to them. It's my grandparents. And it's amazing. This is what they dedicated their life to. They gave they came from Soviet Russia. They understood when they came to America, the most important thing was Jewish education. And they literally, every penny they earned, they gave to Jewish education. I remember that when the family was sitting Shiva, when they passed away, people came into their home and they looked around and said they couldn't believe their eyes. like, this is their home. What a simple abode they live in. I don't know what they were expecting to see, but it's simple. It was a beautiful, simple, humble abode. And they learned very quickly that, yes, Mr. and Mrs. Deitsch gave away more money than they kept for themselves. And where did they put their money? In Alei Torah Institute, an institution that educates Jewish children, because at the end of the day, they knew that was the most important thing for our future, for our now and for our future. And that, and their children clearly saw this example. And look, my husband and his brother, grandchildren of these children, opened a school, a yeshiva, and many of their children and grandchildren are educators and raising children in this path, because this was very, very important to them. And of course, like I said, I grew up where this was the most important thing in our home. When we were at the supper table every single night, my father would sit at the head and tell us stories about tzaddikim, which are righteous people, our rebbes. This is how we grew up every single night. We would sit by the table and he would tell us stories. Why? Because from them we can learn what it means to be a righteous person, a Jewish person. There was speaking of my father, telling us about our tzaddikim, our grandparents, and our holy rabbis that came before us, about their stories of self-sacrifice, because he knew this is what inspires us and this is what impacts us. A father was once traveling on a train with his child, actually was a grandfather, and his grandfather was looking at him with so much awe, and they were talking and having such loving dialogue and conversation. You could see the child was looking to the grandfather and asking him for advice, and the grandfather lovingly was speaking back to him. And one of the passengers interrupted and said, "Do you mind if I ask you a question? I notice your grandson looks to you with so much respect, with so much love. How do you do this? I don't know anyone in my circle who has that. Our grandchildren don't look at us. We're like old. We're like useless to them. They care about the young heroes, the young people. How did you accomplish this?" And he said, when you teach your child that humanity comes from apes, and as time went on, we evolved into mankind. The further you are away from the beginning, the more human you perhaps are, the more value there is. But when you teach your children that there's a God, and he created Adam, and he created Chava, and he created our forefathers, and that we come from them, then the people who are closer to those generations, they're the ones we look to. They're closer to all that, and they have what to teach us, and we have what to learn from them. And that is exactly what we're trying to teach our children, what the Rebbe wanted us to teach them. There's a God, there's a Torah, there's so much that we can learn from and teach them. And like I said, many of us might be worried that, perhaps it's too late. I want to share a story of my own child. When she was little, she was 5 years old, and all of a sudden, like, it dawned on me that she was hooked on watching videos. And I mean, it was very simple. I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but this is the truth. It was an easy babysitter. I had other children home at the time. I was working. We came up from school. I had homework to do, supper to put up, all the work that I had to take care of. And, she would come home, throw her briefcase on the floor, run upstairs, turn on the video. Of course, my machine was always censored. We only allowed for kosher videos that taught good values. But nevertheless, a child watching videos every day for hours on end can't be a good thing. And as a matter of fact, I saw it in her temperament. She was nervous, she was anxious, she would come from school, literally trip over me and run to the video machine, not even stop to greet me properly. And when it came to supper time, it was difficult to bring her down. I couldn't peel her away. She wasn't hungry. She didn't need to eat. I realized this is really becoming an addiction. And I set my mind to it. I said, this has got to stop, and I have to figure out how to do this. One thing I knew for sure, and I learned this from my father, from all the stories of our great people, we can only teach with love. There's no other way. We need to make it exciting for children. We need to make it meaningful. We need to outdo the other things. So if the video was the most exciting thing for her at the time, how am I going to compete with that? And I thought about it, and I went out and bought every possible craft you can think of. And I planned all trips and time spent together and visits to the library, bought books, read together. We got drawing books. If I tell you, within 2 weeks, I mean, it wasn't easy, trust me. It was a full-time job for me. I literally was sitting and entertaining my daughter for 2 weeks, 24/7. And you know what? After those 2 weeks, I can tell you, she began to read and draw. She went to the piano. I began to play music. She developed so many talents and so many skills. It was unbelievable what happened during that time. And this is just, simply watching kosher videos, but clearly that wasn't a good thing for her. But I could tell you since then, she's now 11 years old. Since then, she doesn't watch any videos. On my phone, sometimes I'll show her family videos, videos of her nieces and nephews, and that's what she watches, and I'm grateful for that. And it was a lesson that it's never too late. So any of us who have things that we want to impact with our children, we don't come home and say, no, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to stop. We're going to think about how can we implement things in a beautiful way, and we're going to think about how can we start. And I want to share a story that was very beautiful to show the self-sacrifice that's required sometimes for education. Jonathan Sachs, Alav Shalom, rabbi, he was the chief rabbi of London, and so he said that the Prime Minister of London invited him for a lunch. And at the same day, he was invited to open school, a new school in London. It was around the same time. And this was a real dilemma for him. But then he said, regretfully, I declined the lunch with the Prime Minister of England. And I went to open house for school. And he said the reason for this is because prime ministers and governments affect society. Education affects the world. And how true is that? So each and every one of us can have such a tremendous impact. As a matter of fact, once I was called to Long Island to speak about marriage and family purity. And one of the hostess, she had a beautiful mansion. She opened her home for Torah, and that's where I gave the talk. And she came over to me after, and she said, I was very inspired and I really want to do more, but how can I introduce this to my children? They're not interested. They're busy out doing their friends' sneakers and playing video games. How am I ever going to start this and reach them? And I said to her, you started just today, right now here in your house. You opened up your beautiful mansion. You showed them that I built this beautiful home, and this is what I'm doing with it. I'm opening it up for a Torah class. And the more you do this, start doing more and more of this for them, not just for adults. Share with them. And again, your children are going to listen to you. They're going to see, what are you spending your money on? Are you spending your money on buying a more beautiful ring and a more beautiful car? Or am I investing in education? And again, those things are important. Those things are wonderful, especially when you can use it to, like I said, to share and use it for Torah and use it for good things. But the children clearly will see what we're invested in, and that's what they're going to care about ultimately, and that's what they're going to do. And the Rebbe himself gave us very, very clear directions how we can impact the children. I'd like to just quickly recap. We want to sign our children up to Tzivos Hashem. We want to teach them the 12 Pesach. We want to make sure they're signed up to a Jewish school, getting a Jewish education. The Rebbe said that every child's room should be a room that represents a leader. It should have a sitter in it with their name on it, Jewish books with their own name on it. They should have a tzedakah, a charity box, and give charity in their room so that they're living in a room like that. And our kitchen should have a charity box, and they should see us giving charity every single day. And the Rebbe wanted us to have even parties on Shabbos, gatherings on Shabbos, because all week they're in school. What's going to happen on Shabbos? A day should go by. They shouldn't be inspired and learn and connect to Hashem. And he instituted, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was busy with so much, instituted a program that children should have parties and gatherings on Shabbos. And guess what? Who should lead them? Older children. That's who led them since when I was a little kid. Kids 2 years older than me were leading the party. They were giving a story about the weekly portion, a game that was connected to morals and values and connecting us to our purpose and meaning. And this is so that one day shouldn't go by that we're not tapping in and investing in our children. How powerful is that? And the list goes on, and I'm sure Chaya can post a list below of all the campaigns that the Rebbe, all the programs the Rebbe created for the children. And I'll wrap up with one thing. There was two professors were having a discussion about their, memories about their experience in their university. And one professor said, it's amazing. Our university has so many branches of education. It's unbelievable. And the other professor said, that's true, but it's missing the roots. At the end of the day, our children are compared to trees, and they can have branches as spread out all over, but if they don't have strong roots, the tree cannot last, cannot stand strong. And it's each and every one of our power to go out there and educate, first of all, ourselves, because if we're not educated, we can't be inspired, and we don't look excited, we can't be excited, we know what to do. So we need to learn, and we need to show the children what we care about and invest in them, and they will follow suit and grow to be beautiful, strong trees. And God willing, we will have tremendous pride in them and invest them. And I just want to wrap up and say that the very fact that you're here tonight on this Zoom shows your investment in them and in the future, that you took an hour of your time in your own homes to learn about education, to learn about this mitzvah, clearly is setting an example for your children. And if they don't know about it, please go home and tell them. Wishing you all the best. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Basya. That was incredible and informative. And I can say you really walk the talk, and you really live by this, because I know your children and I see how much you implanted in them, and it's so incredible. And a lot of people say, like, my children need to go to this school and that school, and they need to do this extracurricular activity because they need to be successful in their future with work and jobs. And I just want to say that so many people think that, if your child goes to college, it's a guarantee. But I just want to say that the real guarantee is when you give them real proper education. They come out okay, and they're able to function really well in the world, in business. There's so many successful businessmen and women that came out of this type of education, this type of sample, and it really works. So I really encourage everyone to tap into learning more and educating yourself more, and being an example to all those around you. Thank you so much, Basya. Thank you for your time and your expertise. And we're really, really humbled that you were with us, because it was a very long time in coming that we really were waiting for you to come on again. And I just want to end off with a quote of Hindalea Bas Menachem Mendel. It was found by her Shiva. She passed away too young at 32, and we should see her with the coming of Mashiach. But her line was, become the impossible, do the unreal, be yourself, and be it all the way. So we're going to end off with that, and let's be a living example to all those around us. And thank you so much. And I just want to give a big shout out to to our Rebbe, who gave his entire life to Jewish education, to his children, which his spiritual children. He didn't have he didn't have his own children, but someone came to his wife and asked her, where are your children? And she said, my children are in 770. They're the Chassidim. They are. And how do you become a Chassid? How do you become one of those children? Is by connecting to the teachings of the Rebbe and the Torah. And that's how we could all become one of his spiritual children. So with that, I just hope we will merit to see the coming of Mashiach so soon, because it's the year of Hakel, and it's still until Rosh Hashanah. We celebrate this year where the men, women, and children gathered to learn and to bring sacrifice to God. And today we don't have that, and we will have it one day very soon with the coming of Mashiach. But today we learned Torah, which we did tonight. So I hope you guys will incorporate that in your homes and in your family life and in your schools and wherever you have a chance to make a difference. Have a blessed night, and we'll see you next week. Good night.